Monday morning headlines across Major League Baseball. Well, there really aren't any unless you're in the Juan Soto sweepstakes or who knows what. Not a lot going on in Major League Baseball these days, but we do know some awards are coming up this week. Guardians players are involved. Some aren't involved and should have been involved. And we know some Guardians minor leaguers are leaving. We'll talk about if the Guardians need to improve or if they have improved their approach to the draft or international free agency.
You are Locked On Guardians, your daily podcast on the Cleveland Guardians. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to the show today. Today's episode is brought to you by Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDON for $20 off your first purchase. I know it's not spooky season, but I got a spooky list for you in this one to look forward to.
Sure do. That'll be interesting. Not real interesting. It'll be kind of depressing, but we're trying not to be depressing today. Hey, I think some Guardians players or managers, I think some of them are going to win awards this week, possibly. We'll talk about that, and we'll talk about some guys who won't win awards that maybe at least should have been in the conversation. And then we know some Guardians minor leaguers are leaving. Some guys signed minor league free agents contracts elsewhere. So I wanted to take a look back and kind of see what went wrong there, and if the Guardians need to change their approach to the draft and international classes if they have, or what they've done wrong, because it's been, there's been a lot of talk about the 2017 international class in years past was supposed to be a big one, and it kind of hasn't been. So we're going to kind of look at that and see where the Guardians went wrong and what they need to do to change in the future there.
And by went wrong in the international class, we mean pretty much went wrong every single year for the last 30 years. But we'll get to that. This is a list where I'm debating having Edward Musica make it. You remember Edward Musica? For those who don't, well, then you probably never read my stuff back when I was at IBI back in the day. Went on to be a national scout and prospect writer. It's gotten 24/7 before being one of the first people Locked On decided to bring on and talk about baseball here.
I'm Justin Latta. I have been covering the Guardians minor league system since 2007. And I do remember Edward Mujica a little bit. I do remember everyone in this international class. I remember some of the guys you're going to talk about, too, when they were at Lake County, since I've been covering places like that at Guardians Baseball Insider when it was Indians Baseball Insider and the News Herald, the Morning Journal, which, by the way, that piece dropped on the Roll 5 stuff, so go check that out over on places like Blue Sky, where Jeff and I are both hanging out these days. So if you want some interaction about baseball and other things, check us out. You can same handles as on X, as it were, and
it's Twitter
on the screen. Always Twitter. You're right. So we know last week Clase and Jose both made the All MLB team. Really not a surprise there. Not surprised, but a little bit surprised that Clase is. I don't even know when they're giving away. I don't even know when they're giving away these awards or handing them out, because I feel like Major League Baseball is just so bad at award season.
They're bad at off seasons in general. I think that's they're just
the worst off season in all pro sports is definitely Major League Baseball.
It is far and away. It's not even close. They managed to do the worst job of handling it to make it as anticlimactic and uninteresting. Like there's like a countdown for tampering for the NBA and the NFL, and even like hockey, things start flying. Like after day 3, you're like, there's nobody left. Baseball, it's like, wait, has it started? Travis D'Arnaud signed, so I guess it started, right? It's like,
I mean, in the NBA, Juan Soto would already be on a team.
Yeah.
He would have been the first guy off the board.
Yeah.
This is the only sport where that happens. And even in the NFL, I'm not like a huge NFL guy, but the NFL has their award season like leading up to the Super Bowl. They wouldn't do that for the World Series. Like, why not? You have off days during the World Series, right? You have like travel days. Why not put the awards in there? I just don't get it. So I don't even know when these awards are being given away. There's a lot of stuff going on this week. I don't know if this is one of them, but we haven't really touched on this yet. Emmanuel Clase is up for Cy Young. I don't think you and I either believe he's going to get it.
No.
It's going to go to Tarek Skubal, probably running away.
Going to Skubal.
And it should. It should go to Tarek Skubal. I think it's just interesting, though, that, look, a reliever – Eric Gagne was the last reliever to win it, right? In the NL. It was like 03.
He was pretty much like perfect that year. And
he was. Clase was darn near perfect. But does it say more about Clase's season that he was nominated, or does it say about the lack of where pitching is at in Major League Baseball? Like nothing against Clase, obviously. Like,
I
he had a
think the
great
year was
season.
good enough for a top 5 finish at least.
I know, just looking across like the American League though, like, you know, Tarek Skubal 5.9 F4, ERA below 3. He had a fantastic season, but I look after that and I'm like, okay, well, after that, Ronel Blanco had the second lowest ERA, and he wasn't anything like special. Like, he wasn't even nominated for this award. Framber Valdez was under 3. Corbin Burns, you know, kind of lacked the strikeouts this year. Like, it just seemed like a really down year for pitching overall. I think, I don't know, where Major League Baseball is with starting pitching is not in a good place. And again, this doesn't have to do much with Emmanuel Clase, but if a reliever was going to win it, if Clase was going to win it, I think it would have been this year. Like, so if it's not going to happen this year, it's probably never going to happen. Because
I don't know if it was like necessarily he was going to win it this year, just because like Skubal's year was really good. Like he was able to get recognized at a better chance, but like didn't Skubal like win essentially the Triple Crown and do something that?
Yeah, he had a great season. I mean, yeah, Verlander was like the last one to do that, which is ironic because they're both on Detroit, but. I don't know. We haven't seen a Cy Young winner since 2017. I feel like every other year you were getting a Guardians Indians Cy Young winner. I know we went all those decades without one forever, and now it feels like we're in kind of a drought. So who is going to be the next Guardians Cy Young winner? If it's not going to be Clase.
I don't know if whoever it is on the roster. You know, I love Tanner to death. He's not a guy who strikes me as that like tier 1 type of arm. So maybe I'll be wrong. And if Espino could ever get healthy, like he's the dude. Like that's the guy where
or isn't one of these high school kids they just drafted.
I don't know if none of them were guys where I was like, and I could be wrong. Stuff. You know, guys can come around, but it's like none of them were that like, you know, if they'd taken Sloan in the first round, like don't get me wrong, I love Doughty, but like Sloan, the New York kid, was like the one kid like I would have been like, okay, maybe there's some ace potential in that profile. But yeah, like it's more they're going for safety as they are, you know, known to do.
Well, the thing you're talking about too is there's nobody in the system where you're like, yeah, that guy's guy. It's Daniel Espino. Like that's the only guy in the system where you can point at anybody and say, okay, this guy's got Cy Young potential. Like if it's not Tanner, then it's a guy who hasn't pitched in 2 years, which is wild, or it's Clase, or it's nobody currently in the system. Like you and I both love Austin Peterson. I don't think Austin Peterson's that guy either.
No, his best outcome to me is a number 3. Like
right,
good chance
exactly.
he's more of a 4 or 5. But
Doughty and Oki do not project to that level as well either. And I know some people will be tempted to comment Tugboat, and that's just not also a thing either on that end. Yeah. As for the other awards this week, Stephen Vogt is up for Manager of the Year whenever that gets announced. I don't know the dates of these, which is hilarious. I hate this award. I have to be honest. I hate Manager of the Year. I think it's one of the stupidest awards.
Why do you hate happiness? It's just someone gets to be happy and win an award.
And that's fine. That's great. I'm all for guys getting recognized in any role for great work. I hate the premise of it because there's no definition to this. Like,
yeah.
Why? Okay. So like the best record in the American League went to the Yankees and Aaron Boone. Yankees fans do not like Aaron Boone.
No, it's the most unexpected result.
Yes. It's not really the Manager of the Year, right? It's just the team who exceeded expectations and we assign that to the manager. This is the same group. And this is not particularly anything Stephen Vogt did, because I think Stephen Vogt did do a good job for the most part, and I think he did have a whole lot of expectations on him, or not expectations, but a lot of things he had to walk into here. But like, this is mostly the same group that made the playoffs in 2022. You got an all-time great bullpen, which consisted of a new cast of characters. Should the award go to Brad Goldberg? Like, I'm joking, but you know, like this award is just so it's just who was the team that we thought was going to suck the most and then ended up not sucking. And it's all 3 AL Central teams. By the way, I think this is hilarious because it's Stephen Vogt, it's AJ Hinch, and it's
Cotero. And
no, it's the Cotero.
Cotero with the
Royals manager. And so that means everybody thought that the best team in the AL Central would be the Minnesota Twins, right? And they didn't make the playoffs.
More speaks to how not good Baldelli was than everything
and
else.
The Twins in general, right?
Yeah.
And they clearly were the team that was favored the most based on this outcome because nobody expected any of these three teams to be any good. That's what this says to me. Not that Vogt didn't do a good job or did a great job. To me, this just says that they didn't expect anybody in the AL Central to be any good. They expected the Yankees to be good. They expected the Orioles to be good.
Which is funny
everybody in the AL
because
East was expected to be good.
I just did everyone's favorite interrupted, but like, didn't Tito win this in 22? Right?
Yes, he did.
So
right.
he won in 22.
With the same group of players, minus the bullpen.
Same team.
Right. Essentially the same team. I mean, you had different starting pitching, which was a disaster this year for the most part. I'm not saying Vogt doesn't deserve it because, yes, the starting pitching was disastrous for the most part. And the bullpen was all-time great. And it takes some know-how to deploy that and get that together when you have a group of guys. Look, there were two guys in the bullpen, one guy in the bullpen that was should have been a rookie of the year, which we didn't get to this conversation yet. I know why Cade Smith is not in the rookie of the conversation. I know exactly why he's not, but why is he not in the conversation? Like, seriously, like, it's all about saves or home runs or batting average or F4. And if it's all about F4, he'd be in the conversation. I think it's another piece of Major League Baseball where we're missing things, not just because we're a Cleveland-based show, but I think Cade Smith deserved some rookie of the year conversation love. Maybe if he's not in the top three. Like, this was not a strong year for American League rookies. Colton Cowser hit 24 dingers, but he had 242, man.
He was a platoon guy,
he was
too.
A platoon player for the most part. No, he was. I'm sorry, but he played 153 games.
Yeah, but I think he had splits that were very platoony.
Yes, he did. Austin Wells, he had 229. He had 229.
Well, batting average.
I'm not a big batting average guy, but come on, like 229. That's your rookie of the year. And then Mason Miller. Was Mason Miller nominated?
I mean, he qualified. I don't know. I didn't pick
28 saves, and he had the most strikeouts of any reliever, I think, this season. It's mine. Yeah, he had one more strikeout than Cade Smith.
Yeah,
I don't know. Reliever,
probably less innings with his health issues. So.
I don't know if there's any. I don't know what relievers have won or been in the rookie of their conversation in the past. I was too lazy to look that up, but I think it's a little ridiculous. We didn't get any conversation about Cade Smith or Mason Miller in the rookie of the year conversation. This was a very poor class for rookie of the year.
Looks like Devin Williams is the last player to win the rookie of the year as a closer. That was in 2020. If you want to go beyond that, 2011 was Craig Kimbrell and 2010 Nefeliti Perez. Then you have Hudson Street and Andrew Bailey to close out the top five. So or the most recent five. And that takes you back to 2005.
Which is why Cade Smith wasn't in the conversation for this, obviously, because he had no saves.
The Devin Williams, I do not think was a closer in his year. He would have been behind Hader in 2020. So that is the most recent one was not a closer.
Yeah. I would have thought Cade Smith deserved. Again, this class was a very poor class of rookies. Colton Cowser, whatever, fine. But like Wells, Abreu, Langford, I don't know. I would have put him in the conversation, same with Mason Miller. I think that's hilarious that he was missing out on that. And
did he end up with a higher F4 than Lucas Heel?
Luis Heel?
Cade Smith.
Yes, he did by 0.5.
So he's significantly more valuable.
So he out-earned the best rookie starting pitcher. Cade Smith was better than. Cade Smith had a higher F4 than Mason Miller, who was the rookie closer. Like, it's mind-boggling. He wasn't part of.
Well, I think Cade Smith versus Miller just comes down to Miller's health. Like that's the one thing. I think Miller would, if he had a health, would have matched him.
He had 65 innings. That's a lot of innings for a closer on a team that was not good.
It is.
All the health stuff you're talking about was in the past. It wasn't this year.
I thought he missed like a few weeks this year. I could be wrong, but that's not worth it. It's neither here nor there.
Yeah. So that's where award season is at. You can look up when these awards are being given out because Major League Baseball doesn't care to promote it. And we're talking about it just because, we're waiting for some kind of headline to drop. And I also think it's just hilarious to see where the expectations were for Cleveland and how these awards are given out are just absolutely hilarious. While we're looking back, The Guardians 2018 draft class and 2017 international class. A couple of those guys are starting to find other homes in Major League Baseball or minor league baseball, as it were. Did not make the impact we thought on this team. So what needs to change for the Guardians, or what have they changed since then? What has this delivered? We're going to take a look at that on today's Locked On Guardians. And we're also going to look and wrap up the Arizona Fall League. Chase DeLauder, a couple other guys in the Arizona Fall League action. That season is over. We'll talk about some off-season league stuff, too, in the Guardians system.
But first, we're going to talk about our good friends and longtime sponsors over at FanDuel. I was just looking up their MLB odds. There's not much. Cleveland does have the fourth best odds to win the American League. Seattle, fifth. World Series odds for Cleveland, not as bright. They are currently ninth best odds, tied with Seattle, interestingly enough. But right now, we all know the main focus for people overusing FanDuel is the NFL, and get ready to tackle NFL action with FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. Because right now you can bet $5 and get $150 in bonus bets if you win. The FanDuel Sportsbook app gives you everything you need to place your bets on the NFL all in one place. So when you get a hunch in the middle of the game, you want to check out the latest stats, view live play-by-play, and so much more on the same page where you place your bets. Just visit FanDuel.com to join today, and you'll get started with $150 in bonus bets if your first $5 bet wins. That's FanDuel.com. Never waste a hunch and make every moment more with FanDuel, an official sportsbook partner of the NFL.
All right, Jeff. What do you want to do? You want to start with 20? Let's start with some news real quick. So this will set us up. Aaron Bracho, who was part of the 2017 international signing class, who I believe got the biggest bonus.
He did. He was the big name
by the Indians. He got 1.5 million. He is now a Los Angeles Dodger. He signed with them on a minor league deal. And Ray Delgado has also signed elsewhere since then too. He was not part of the international class, but he was part of the 2018 draft class.
Highest paid sixth rounder ever, I believe, right? Was he a sixth rounder?
Yeah, sixth rounder. He got 900,000.
Yep.
So tomorrow we're going to be talking about getting ready for the Rule 5 or the 40-man roster moves that are going to impact the Rule 5 draft and those classes. This goes back a little bit further into minor league free agency and all that kind of stuff. Let's start with the 2017 class, just chronologically here. You and I have been looking at this for kind of a while now, or at least we've seen these guys for quite a while. Let's just go back to some of the guys in this class. Aaron Bracho was signed for $1.5 million. He was signed as a shortstop. I don't believe he played any games there. If he did, it was very few. This was the class that also had George Valera in at $1.3 million. Some other guys in this class you might have heard of were Lex Planez, if you're kind of a hardcore prospect person, an outfielder who people thought had, possibly 5-tool upside. Jose Tena, most people should be familiar with because they traded him to Washington this past year in the Lane Thomas deal. And Brian Rocchio's in this class. Brian Rocchio has been the best player in this class. He got $125,000. And then a guy named John Kenson-Noel is also in this class who wasn't even considered anybody at the time when he signed. So this class though was kind of talked about as a, I don't want to say transformational or whatever you want to call it, but there was a lot of hype surrounding these guys. Like Brian Rocchio was one of the most high baseball IQ guys, the most major league ready of the class. People compared George Valera to Robinson Cano and talked about him being a middle of the order bat. Planez had again 5-tool upside. I really like Planez a lot. But a lot of people thought this class was going to be a huge impact international class for Cleveland. They were lauded for this group. And they gave Aaron Bracho the most money of anybody in their class. Brian Rocchio has been the best guy in this class, and he's only made it 1 year, and we don't even know if he's the shortstop of the future right now.
No, there's definitely people who were saying this class is like Rocchio, Bracho, Valera. That's your future 2, 3, 4.
Yeah.
When these were 19-year-old kids, and I was always I was always a little bit lower on them. I have to go in the comments, and there's some people through the years who were not happy with the idea of how much I wanted to shop or trade any of them at various points. But I just always remember people being like, George Valera, he's got the best hit tool in this class. I'm like, have you looked at his numbers? let's not just make it based on a
What
pretty
his swing looks like, right?
Yeah.
Again, in batting practice.
In batting practice. It was always very weird. I kind of liked Bracho more than Valera, and then I flipped the other way pretty early on, probably in that 2020 season. But I mean, the three had as much hype as we've seen, and you can probably go find episodes where I talked about like this. This was a hype class. This was a class that we thought was going to be the one to turn things around. So I promised some scary numbers. If I am looking for a WAR of 4 or better, the last 10 international signed players in Cleveland
I
system.
mean, career WAR, by the way.
Career WAR. Yeah.
Yeah.
So it just, the first grouping is Jose Yandy Diaz, who didn't stay here, Urshela, who didn't stay here, Hector Rondon, who didn't stay here, Anthony Santander, who didn't stay here. Then you have to get to Rafi Lefty, Fausto Carmona / Roberto Hernandez, Victor Martinez, Johnny Peralta. And then at 10, Masika is at a 3.9. Danny Baez doesn't really count because he was a big. So then you have to go to Bartolo Colon to get 10 international. And the other scary thing is, like, of that recent list, most of them, nothing here. Like, the international market, I mean, getting 2 good players out of it will make it a generational talent, because they just haven't done that for whatever reason. They often get praised for their work in there, and the guys they add, but they just, who was it? Robles, who like reappeared with the Cubs a few years ago. Like, I remember when he was hyped. The one middle infielder. This was like back in 2007. Like, we've had so many guys, and they all, when I first started writing, it was the trifecta of Hector Rondon, Kelvin De La Cruz, and Jedmar Gomez, and Alexander Perez, and I can just keep going. But it's just odd, the high amount of flame. Like, I get it. Prospects have a high flame out rate. There's a super high for the international market.
Yeah, I mean, Jose Ramirez, if you look at the guys that made the most impact for them recently, it's been lower money guys. Like Brian Rocchio, yes, he came with some headline hype in 2017, but he was a low money guy in that class. Jose Ramirez, nobody knew who Jose Ramirez was, right? Even when they signed guys like Gio Urshela and Yandy Diaz was a defector from Cuba. Like,
he was the other guy in the boat with Linares.
He was a reliever who was a pitcher who is now actually a pitching coach for the Minnesota Twins, Argenis Angulo. Nice guy, by the way. Still lives
no, I thought he was the other guy with Leandro.
Angulo was drafted. You're right. There was another guy.
Leandro Linares, who they gave like.
Yes.
They
gave him a lot too. But
yeah, I mean, he was. There was a point where I thought he was turning around. That's a story, but they gave him over $1 million. Like, he was for them a big guy, and Yandy was just the other guy in the boat. Like, he was literally referred to as that.
Most of their success stories in the international market have been, John Kenson-Noel. Again, you and I are not super high on where things go.
It's a success story, 100% though.
It is based on what he did this year. It is a success story. That's a low bar for them. And a lot of their international classes are, again, it's these guys with plus hit tools or supposedly plus hit tools, and defensive value up the middle. And look, let's be honest about this too. The international market, as far as signing those players, is incredibly corrupt. You saw, I don't know if anybody saw the headlines. Yeah, I don't know. Well, the headlines the other day about how the Padres had to forfeit a pick or a player they were going to sign because he falsified his age and he was 19 and not 14. You're not supposed to be able to sign these guys until they're age 16. The fact that they even thought that kid was 14 and had an agreement with him just shows you how, and nothing's happening. Like, the Padres aren't being punished. They're just not signing the guys.
Because they're signing these kids, honestly, they're making these deals at 12 and 13.
Yes, exactly. So it's an incredibly disgusting, honestly, and corrupt market. So when you're agreeing, and guys like Jose Ramirez and other stuff, those guys have come on a little bit later because they're not priority guys. But it's very hard in the international market to project these things going forward. When you're giving guys like Aaron Bracho and George Valera millions of dollars, it's very hard to project what they're going to be going forward, because this is an even bigger risk than taking a high school player, because it's so far. And a lot of these kids are 13 years old and they're not going to college, not going to school. They're just, they're just dropping out to play baseball. And it's just very hard to project what's going to happen for them going forward. And the Aaron Bracho thing specifically, was a switch hitter, was supposed to, again, have a plus hit tool, played second, was signed as a shortstop, never played shortstop, had to stop switch hitting, never made good contact. And I'm not using the show to bash Aaron Bracho. I have nothing against Aaron Bracho, but it's just like internationally evaluation has not been their best friend. Like, look at the Astros, Framber Valdez, Christian Javier, Ronel Blanco. And these are guys that the Astros are signing at age like 17, 18, 19, when most guys are 16, and that's it. Nobody considers a player over the age of 18 in the international class. I don't know who the international director was back then and who it is now, but I think you see a pattern here of what they go after in the international classes, and I think something has to change. Because the dynamics or the skill set they're going after, the tools they're going after now are not any different from what we've seen. It's all plus hit guys that play up the middle, and it hasn't served them well. They never touch pitching. They never sign pitchers for any kind of money in the international market, which I understand, but maybe they should.
So back in the day, 2020, there's a really good article on SB Nation by a Philly site, and maybe we'll put some links in. So the average was a 140. Cleveland at the time, this was from 1990 through 2019, had the sixth best signings at 220 generated WAR over that time. But almost all of that was from 1990 to 2004. Like, they had very little after that. They definitely kind of fell off, and we've seen that fall continue. There's some, like I said, some really interesting things. It's just funny. Around 2010, they cratered, and they've never really recovered from that.
Yeah, I'm not surprised. International market has just not been their friend on any continent.
It's burning money for them almost.
It is really weird. Maybe they should just spend all their money on Roki Sasaki and say, forget it. We're just going to get this guy, not sign anybody else, because we know that one might actually work out. All right, we're also going to touch on the 2018 draft class because one of the members of that class is also now out of the system. We'll talk about what they've delivered and if the Guardians also have changed their approach since then as well. Hint, they really haven't. If you're not using Game Time to buy tickets to events, then you should change your approach and use Game Time. Game Time has a new feature called Game Time Picks. It makes getting tickets to see your favorite teams play live even easier. I just bought some Cavs tickets for the night before Thanksgiving. I use Game Time. You know why? Because Game Time makes it easy to find the best deals in any game. And honestly, I decided ahead of time I wanted to go to this game, but I could have waited. We could have waited to buy these tickets until the night before, because with Game Time, tickets go down closer to tip-off or first pitch, the puck dropping, whatever event you want to go to. So if you're out and about, Thanksgiving, the night before Thanksgiving is always a popular night to go out and hang out. Hopefully you're doing it responsibly. If you want to go to that Cavs game and you're out with some friends, don't feel bad about waiting until the last minute, because you might get a really good deal by checking on Game Time too. And when you're doing that, make sure you turn on the all-in pricing. It's going to tell you exactly how much it's going to cost you to get in the arena. No surprise fees at checkout. I did that to buy our Cavs tickets as well. They're going 82-0, so you're going to want to get your tickets, and you're also going to want to make sure you're doing it at the best price possible. Game Time is going to help you do all that. It takes the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time Picks. Download the Game Time app, create an account, use our code LOCKEDONMLB. You're also going to get $20 off your first purchase on top of all these other great benefits I just talked about. Terms apply, but create the account, redeem code LOCKEDONMLB for $20 off your very first purchase on Game Time. Download Game Time today. What time is it? It's Game Time. $82-0. Cavs are going to 82-0. I wish the Guardians' success rate in the 2018 draft class was just as good, but we were talking about Reynaldo Delgado.
They're 18% of the way there.
I mean, in retrospect, actually, this was not a terrible draft class for them, but one of the players that left, most people don't know who Ray Delgado is. He's an infielder.
Excellent defender.
Yeah, another guy who used to be a switch hitter, stopped switch hitting. But the defense was always good. Was one of those contact guys.
I liked that pick. I really liked that pick. I'm not gonna lie.
Yeah. So he never made it to Cleveland, obviously out of the sixth round. But this class did produce Bo Naylor, which the jury's still kind of out on here. You got Nick Sandlin, who is a contributing reliever. Who knows how much more time he has with the Guardians. But he's been a solid reliever for them so far as middle relievers are concerned. And then, of course, the headliner of this class, which is ironic, is Stephen Kwan, who is now an all-star and, engaged. Congrats to him, whatever. After that, though, it is, you have Tim Herron. Ironically, the strength of this class is Stephen Kwan, who nobody expected this from, and Tim Herron from around that doesn't exist anymore.
Yeah.
Then you got guys like, Cody Morris, who you and I were both very high on for a length of time.
Fun
Daniel
fact.
Freeman,
Can I throw something at you? Real, I know we talked about this. You're talking about Reynel Delgado got the highest bonus in that round, is the highest bonus ever. 3 highest WARs from that round: Drew Rasmussen, Lawrence Butler, and Cody Hooer. So just throw that out there as a fun fact from that 6th round.
Yeah, fun fact.
I mean, Lawrence Butler, he wouldn't look good on this team.
No, we talked about trading for him back in, back.
He's not a rookie.
Season.
He's not any good.
Yeah, not any good. Where Cleveland did miss in this class, though, because, again, Bo Naylor is still kind of the jury out here. And Bo Naylor, where they picked here, I have no problem with that pick. But it does represent exactly who Cleveland is, right? They, in the first round, are not – they take their gambles in the first round, right? Like, they don't play it safe in the first round, which is kind of odd. The rest of the draft, though, they do play it safe. But kind of here they didn't. Like, this class just reinforces that high school pitching has not been their friend. They're talking about international class has not been their friend. They wasted a pick on Ethan Hankins. I think they probably, when you're taking high school players, it's really important to get to know these kids. It's also
hard to get to know high school players.
It's hard. It's hard to get to know them. It's hard to pick what they're going to be like in the future. Lenny Torres, who is also a minor league free agent, by the way, I know a lot of people this year are trying to tell me, oh, he's going to be rostered. Oh, they're going to do this. Lenny Torres, great kid, has gone through some tough stuff, especially the last 2 years. Moved to the bullpen. He throws 98, 99. I'm sure some team is going to take a chance on him because he's an electric arm. And the slider used to be great, but it's a flat fastball and the control's iffy. But they spent over $4 million on those 2 picks and nothing in return there. High school pitching is just something they just don't do very well of. And they took their gambles on those 2 picks. They had 3. You can argue this is one of their worst. We said this is a class that delivered for them. Most of this class delivered for them in the way of Kwan and Sandlin and Herron, and we'll see about Naylor. But they had 3 first-round picks, and right now it's Bo Naylor, and if he doesn't pan out, it's looking pretty bad for 2018.
One thing I'll say is, like, in terms of that first round, like the only guys drafted after him that have outscored him have been Xavier Edwards, Chris Bubik, and Jake McCarthy. And Shane McClanahan. Sorry, I missed him near the top.
Yeah, it was a bad class.
It was not a great class. A lot of guys near the top kind of busted out as well. It's been kind of all over, but it is weird. And we talked about, like, we think we understand why they drafted so many prep pitchers, and we think it is kind of that view that they maintain their value more in terms of trade assets than
these
anything
guys
else.
Didn't have any.
Well, the problem with Torres was he got hurt, and then
Hankins kept getting hurt.
Yeah, it's Hankins was a gamble. He got hurt in his draft year. He was talked about as a potential 1-1 guy with Kumar Rocker. They were near the top, and then
which is hilarious because no right-hander has ever gone 1-1.
No, it's never happened. Like I've had to write that article. Like I remember I wrote it for Lucas Giolito in his draft class. Like I've written that article several times. Always like it never happens with prep kids, and it shouldn't. To be honest, it should not. But it's overall they did well. You're just hoping that Bo Naylor bounces back. I think the funniest thing is if you look at Baseball Reference WAR, far and away the most valuable player in this class is Nico Horner, because he's had such high defensive WAR that like he's generated 15 WAR already. He also got some majors.
Class.
He got some. I mean, he's worth 15.1 WAR. Logan Gilbert's only at 9.8. But yeah, it also shows how much Baseball Reference WAR needs a reeval in terms of how much they value defense.
I mean, look at the class. Like Brian Weathers, the guy we both like.
Listen, I was. I'll be honest. It's like I was wire to wire with Casey Mize as the top player in this class, but that also speaks to how bad the class. Like, I mean,
Joey Bart's on his second team.
Like, like Joey Bart, I was never in on that. Nick Madrigal, I think Madrigal might have been my number 2, even though like that guy has 20 grade power. Like it was not. I did have Ryan Weathers as my highest rated prep arm, but like this was honestly, this 2018 class was one of the weakest classes, underrated weak classes we've seen, and sometimes things get forgotten. And yeah, like Logan Gilbert, I loved. I thought he slid really far, way too far. I like Trevor Larnock, but yeah, this was not a great class. And we spent a good chunk of the year with people thinking Matt Liberatore was going to be the first overall pick in this selection. So I think that also speaks a lot to where this class was.
I'm looking at the first 30 picks, and I'm just going to say the player I think the best player in this class, when we look back at it, it's going to be Grayson Rodriguez.
If he can get it together, I mean, there's a chance where there is not a star in this entire top.
It's 30. Pretty bad. So maybe we shouldn't be too hard on the Guardians 2018 class, because again, you got Quan out of it, you got Sandlin, Richie Palacios. Richie Palacios would have been a great player for them to have this past year. By the way, he could have played the Daniel Schneemann role. I think he would have played it better than Schneemann. Lavastida is in this class. He's a free agent too, as well. By the way, they got
the third round produced Jeremy Pena and Kyle Rowley as well as Richie Palacios.
Oh yeah, that's a good one. So Cleveland's got 1, 2, 3 really good players out of this class. 3 solid players. Four players in this class.
I mean, and one can make a case. Honestly, it's Stephen Kwan as a top. He's a top 10, maybe a top 5 talent in this class.
He might be at this point. Yeah, we have to go back and look further. Tomorrow, I believe, is going to be a top 10 show. It's not going to be a top 10 Tuesday, though. We are getting ready for the 40-man roster decisions ahead of the Rule 5 deadline. That is coming on Tuesday, December 19th. So Jeff and I will spend tomorrow's show talking about who is going to be added, who's not going to be added, and kind of looking ahead about what trades they may or may not make, because we do know they love to make trades on that day. So you can expect that in your feeds on Tuesday, and then Wednesday we'll wrap up what happened, and we're also going to talk about free agents that Jeff and I like that make sense for Cleveland this week. We'll do Trade Talk Thursday. You guys love that, and we'll get to a position review from 2024 on Friday. Might even throw in a mailbag. Who knows? We'll see.
Yeah, maybe do some AFL talk. I got to throw in one more round, the 7th round, just because it relates to the Guardians. Urban Duran, Brandon Donovan, Joe Ryan, James Outman, 5th highest award, David Fry.
All right, that was 2018.
Yeah, 2018, David Fry.
All right, so you want to know what they didn't draft David Fry, but they had a good. 2018 ended up being pretty good.
Sometimes they have good scouting years. It's the same thing like when they got Clevenger, and he's another member of that great 2011 class. I want to say where they had scouted him. So sometimes it's about the guys, the friends you add along the way, right? It's all about the friends you add along the way. Because love them, hate them. The one thing this organization has always done well, for the most part, is make trades, and that's how a lot of their teams have been built. I want to thank all of our friends along the way who have been with us every single day. Come rate and come shine. People tell us they want more history. Make sure you show up for the history ones to show that it is the case. Thank you all. We appreciate each and every one of you. And go Guardians, go.